Many friends and listeners have asked me for the origin story of my podcast. So here I am. This is Prashant Uttekar, a learning enthusiast, and today I'm going to take you through the origin story of the Relearning Podcast. The recording is an extract from my fireside chat with a fantastic organization named iauro Systems Private Limited, and I'm thankful to Stephen Raphael and Anupam Kulkarni for allowing me to use this recording for an episode. So be ready for some bad jokes, few facts, and my journey so far with the Relearning Podcast. I hope you enjoy this.
You've kept my introduction. It just sounds like I'm too old. I am. It's just Santoor, which is making me look better, uh, and some video effects if there are. It's just my take on relearning in general. So the best way I can do it is talk about me because I don't know much about outside world. Honestly, I can just read about it and I can emulate the facts. So that's typically what I go with. The influence for my podcast are actually two, and I'm not shy to say this. When I was growing up, which was the 90s, of course, there was a huge our pop culture was Channel V, MTV, and very interesting take on when radio mirchi came about, because those were not typical all India radios. They were very jazzy, very upbeat, young guys, young sounding guys at least, talking about something which is very interesting, or at least making it interesting. And that's when the that's the influence that I had in terms of podcasting or being on the radio as such. So honestly, I'm not sure who can relate to this, that we definitely wanted to be the VJs on the TV or the RJs on the radio because those are the new professions that came about. Now, of course, that has changed a lot, but that was my influence. Stephen definitely said a lot about me in terms of the kind of experience I have. But if I have to describe me in small little word, I like describing myself as a curious learner. It's short, it's easy. Most important, it doesn't have the baggage of my 20 years of experience. Uh, Whenever I say 20 years of experience, I literally go down in my shoulders because there's lots but I literally don't know that how did these 20 years go by. Reason is, uh, thankfully, by God's grace, I always knew what I want to do. And I knew that what I don't want to do, most important. As easy as it may sound, I always knew that I like enabling people. That means I like coaching, I like training and development, I like learning in general as such. And things happen in a way where I know I could use this in my profession as well. So literally what I do for living is something that I really want to do. So in many words, it could also be called as passion. But again, that's a misused word a lot. So let's not go by titling or labeling it something. So I like myself calling as a curious learner, which also means that it could be a little irritating, or people might call me stupid and idiot. I'm absolutely okay with that, because things that fascinate me, things that interest me, I like asking a lot. Why? I simply think that if I'm getting that information, am I able to reciprocate or explain the same thing to someone else? If I'm able to do that, then I'm fine with it. Okay, so this is the habit that I have. I'm sure you will say, "Arey, it's amazing," and that's how it should be. You should definitely meet my wife. She may or may not like it, so it could be very differently taken at respective homes. But that's how I am. I don't know any other way to be, right? So so uh, so I call myself as a curious learner. What I'm curious about could be very different than what you are curious about. Example, I'm extremely curious about learning concepts. I'm extremely curious about methodologies, behaviors, mind, brain, how it works. Extremely curious. Do you remember your first phone, by the way? If you do, just in the right chat option, right? Which one was it? Nokia 1100. Okay, 1600. I used to use a 8800, which was like that slider thing, and amazing. It felt like you've done some job and you flip it. Yeah, but there you go. Amazing, amazing. Great responses. So to cut to what you're using now, and I'm sure you have used many phones. If not many phones, you use a lot of technology. And talking about technology, you know it better than me. That technology evolves every second. It's evolving even now, right? Now, every time you changed a phone or every time you changed to a technology, there were things that you had learned. You unlearn those things, which means some things which are not important. You'd simply get away with that and you move to the next thing. You have no clue. You have already learned the art of unlearning and relearning. I still remember that. Uh, it's funny, and also not that if you're having a conversation with me, I could be simply typing on my Nokia phone and sending a message and still trying to be engaged with you. And it's fascinating to me, at least that time. But definitely the conversation would have gone to I don't know where. But that was possible. But now I cannot think of it. I cannot think of doing something on the phone and talking to someone. But some of them still try to do this. But I'll come to an episode actually, which definitely deals with this. But uh, our minds know how to unlearn and go back to basics and learn something and adapt something new which is making life easier. So basically what I mean is, yeah, there you go. You have an inborn talent to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Relearn is simply going back to basics. Relearn is something to do with uh, what really means. What is the actual ABC of this? It's like reading a book again. And if you read your uh, if you read your favorite book again, every time you read it, there'll be a different message that you will get, right? And that's the power of going back to basics. That's the power of going back to the ABCs. This is my the origin story. I told you that I was in the thought of podcasting for quite some time. I knew that I had to do something around three things: breaking myths, back to basics, and something around learning. I knew this. What I didn't know is how do I go about it, right? In fact, 2 years back, I had done some episodes in a studio and a lot of technical things that I did, but it never saw the light of the day. And I always had that podcasting is a conversation with someone, like a guest or an expert. Cut to the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, everyone was forced to work from home, and this is not new to everyone. And then I was thinking, how is this happening now? And while teaching basketball to my daughter, so I played basketball for the longest time, and again, that's the connection that Stephen and me have. Uh, and I was teaching her. Then I realized that teaching her made me go back to my initial days of basketball, which is playing. What are the right rules? What are the right things to do? What is self learning in while playing as well? Like, we just improvised at home that we kept a laundry bag, and by the way, we do this even today. And there's a ball, and Miraya, my daughter, is throwing it in the basket, and she loves doing it. We also if you see me on social media, I have posted some videos on the court as well. So we try to do that. Uh, so first was I had the thought. Pandemic really pushed me to create something which is in a conducive environment like home, right? And that's where the original thought came from. While playing with basketball with my daughter, I was trying to teach her. I was trying to do something. I was trying to tell her, and then I realized I'm just going back to basics. And whenever you go back to basics, you learn about your basics. So it was very easy for me to just go back, read more about the recent laws, the rules, and see some more how to teach kids as well. And that's how the podcast thought also came about. In fact, while during this time only, April or May, uh, when and I'm sure pandemic, everyone goes does the dishes and sleeps, right? So basically you're tired, and I was tired. I was just about to hit the bed. I hit the bed, and just before getting into the deep sleep, I had the entire thought of how the podcast should be, with the title that is a relearning podcast. So the very moment I did something which I normally don't do, that is I first checked, is this social media handle available? So I was first checking Relearning Podcast. Then I realized Relearning Podcast is already taken by someone. It was a small little podcast much before. So that's why I added the word the. So the Relearning Podcast I checked. It was available on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So that very moment at that night when I had this thought, I blocked these handles and I just went about it. The next day morning, of course, I wrote the entire thing of how I really want to go about it. I knew nothing about doing a podcast, by the way. I knew only that, there is a medium you record and you get it out. What I didn't know is the curation of things, is validation of audience, who all, then how do you create the creative, how do you edit, what is the right way of doing it. I didn't know. Of course, I had an ear for podcasts because I listened to a lot of podcasts, but I didn't know this part. But I knew that I wanted to do this, and that's typically the origin stories. So kitchen and soul, and I love this. I just love this. I know it's just two words. Uh, so I told you, right, that I am into a profession which I really love. I know about myself that I like enabling people. I started very early, by the way, in my career, and that's why 20 years of experience. Uh, Very early on, I realized this is my profession. At the same time, even today, when I say that, if my company doesn't pay me, this is what I will do anyway. So basically, payment is a bonus that I get. I'm really driven by training and development, coaching, and enablement. That definitely pays my bill. But the pandemic really forced me, even if it was Anupam, Stephen, your heads to everyone who's coming to the office knew that we have to take care of the home also. We may have ignored it, or we don't know how to do things. In fact, I have cooked some amazing dishes, at least as per me, and everybody in my home is alive, which means they were edible. But when we were working, when we had an office to go, we knew that after office hours, however late it becomes, we have a place to go, which was home, right? And if you have someone whom you love, which is your daughter, dog for me, and your wife, your mother-in-law, everyone, or your family, your partner, they will embrace you, or at least there will be something that you had a place to go. Now it isn't. Now you just have a room to go and get out, or you move with the laptop and figure out life. That is the thing that pays your bill. Now there are no lines. And trust me, the soul part is something that you definitely need. So even though I love what I do, it is still work, and I had to do the other things in the house. I'm not complaining here. However, they at the end of so basically I work on the podcast after 10:30 in the night. So everything that you hear is everything is recorded at the end of the day. But trust me, after doing office work and all the chores at home, I'm at my brightest when I'm working on the podcast. In fact, that is one thing that I look forward to during the entire day. That is one thing that goes on my mind, that, how do I go about this? What are some right things to do? If I'm thinking about an example, I'm thinking for the next topic, what are some things? Whom do I call? Whom do I reach out to validate? All those things go on, and I'm very happy when I'm working on it. In fact, that is the time I glow, right? So how much ever time or tired I'm the most energetic when I'm working on the podcast, and I call it the me time. I call it the things that I do for soul. So even if you're doing what you like, even if you're doing what you appreciate and you worked so hard, ensure you take some time out to do things for your soul, which is your me time. Ensure you do things that make you joyous, not happy. Joyous means you really feel it. Joyous I cannot explain. Happy is getting things which is you acquire. You get a new car, you are happy. You acquire things and that can make you happy. That comes with money, right? Which is good, not bad at all. Joyous is you feel it. You feel amazing when you see a cat video. You feel joyous when you see your little kid. You feel joyous when you play with your kid. Joyous, play with a pet. Joyous. um, these are the things that I'm talking about. Things travel. There you go. Yeah. These are soul stirring things. Music. By the way, I listen to a lot of music while doing bartan, right? Utensils, music podcast, because that keeps me dancing and cooking as well sometimes. So these are things that stir your soul. So find something which is not only for paying your bills, but also that stir that joyousness in you, and you are happy doing it, right? Ensure all that you do for your soul is also legal wherever you are. Okay, so things you do for the kitchen and things I do for soul. Even if it's crossing, have your me time. That's the message I really want to pass on. And trust me, when I say last year, when I was talking about pandemic, I come from an organization which is into telecom and technology, and that is one thing that thrived during pandemic. So I was super swamped with work, and again, that's not a complaint. I'm more than happy, but I definitely needed something to let my thoughts come out, and that's the relearning podcast, right? So that's something that I want to share with you on the kitchen and soul. Keep that relearning spark, keep that spark of going back to basics. It's extremely important. And that's why when you start in a kitchen, when you are a chef or kitchen, and everybody knows this, the basics you start with is chopping or the preparation for it, right? And that's the analogy I always like. I love analogies which are related to food, by the way. And looking at me, you can guess. You always start with the basics, and if the basics are right, everything turns out to be well. And the basics are even slightly off, you know it. You definitely know it. All right. So what you see here on the screen is some of the people whom I have interviewed. You okay? One thing. Let me just make sure I don't make money with podcast. Okay, and that's never my intent. If it comes, I love money. I'll welcome it. But this was, like I said, it was my outlet to do things. So when I reached out to these guys, whom I look up to, they were more than happy to do it, and that gave me a good confidence. In fact, I'll share this lady whose background is blue, right? Sheetal Kakkar. I knew her from Vodafone, my previous organization, and she was more than happy to do the first episode. Imagine the trust that she had with me. Thankfully, I had kept in touch, and we could do. And she's amazing. She's an executive presence coach, and more she was more than eager to share her stories. So that was the first ever episode. And then being in the Tata group, the gentleman on the left, Emmanuel David, he was more than happy to do this because he liked what I do. And breaking again, second episode, and who would imagine? So after that, of course, I wouldn't say use the word credibility, but I had little experience about how about approaching. So I never shied away from asking. There are few, by the way, who said no, not the time, or don't have the time for it. Example, okay, let's not give examples because they have promised that they will. And really respect that. They, because I when I get a guest, of course they also know that there is no money involved and they're just able to spend that time, and that's the biggest happiness that I have, right? Then I chose to reach out to May, if you know May Mariam Thomas or May Thomas. I chose to reach out to Utsav Memoria. Someone said, yes, someone likes real advertising is dead. I reached out to Varun Dugirala. These are my favorite podcasters, right? And these podcasters are someone that I like listening to. And I, I I said I'm doing something like this. They were more than happy to jump in. Yeah, how brain works, how brain learns. That is by Dr. Colin Lightbody. She's the one who trained me for coaching and got the certification for me as well. Then Neeraj here is a friend and a senior in L&D. He had some crazy ideas that we got out. Then I recently learned about the Fitter app. Jitendra Choksi is there, who himself learns and relearns so much. There's so much to learn from him itself. Then CHRO of Tata Communication, who won so many awards. Uh, then luckily I know Captain Achilles Saxena, who's a Kargil war hero, and it was amazing to chat with him. Right. Then some LinkedIn influencers like Dharmendra Rai, who's learned um, from Tony Vizan himself on how to really use mind maps. Someone like Amit Nagpal, again a holistic leadership enabler. So crazy amount of people, and there are many, by the way, in my list. Okay, then Neha herself reached out in terms of to do some episode on mine, and it was very encouraging for me to do episode with guests. But now you'll notice I have stopped doing guest episodes uh, after a feedback from a very dear friend, again actually Amit Doshi from IVM podcast, that in general, these guests are great, but reduce that and get more of your stuff, which I felt is a good advice, because I also realized in terms of numbers and in terms of what I have my thoughts on should also be out there. So all these guests would. By the way, do check out all these episodes, because these are this is gold for me. And getting an agreement for them to do it, was itself was a big reward. Then what I did are some more episodes. I initially called them shorty, then it became the way of life. So again, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that it's not a revenue generating, but I get a huge amount of gratification when someone tells me that this was really nice. I am the happiest. Someone comes, likes, I'm the happiest. And I think that is it. So as I leave you, just listen to the episode if you've not. Share it on your social media or wherever you can. Review and rate wherever possible. And follow the Relearning Podcast. Follow me. I'm Prashant Uttekar on most things, and the Curious Learner on Instagram. And subscribe it wherever possible.